Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. I've noticed we have people from Brazil, Ecuador, Spain. This is really exciting. I'm Nancy, and today we'll be doing American pronunciation practice. Before we get started, I want to just say a few things about myself. So I've been teaching English for more than 25 years, which is like forever, kind of old. Very experienced. I also speak Spanish, and on italki, I teach intermediate and advanced students. I'm going to have to take a minute to pause the audio on my other computer, just a moment. Alrighty, thank you. So I was born and raised in California. I'm a native speaker. I have a standard American accent. And I've taught students from around the world. I've also traveled, been to Asia, Europe, the Middle East. I live in Mexico right now. So let's go ahead and get started. There we go. So I'll be using the term pronunciation today to cover all the areas that have to do with the sound of the language coming out of your mouth. And the first thing to know is that the goal is always clear communication. So as long as people can understand you, you're good. You don't have to sound like me, or you don't have to sound like somebody else on TV. As long as you're understood, that's the goal. So there's 4 areas that we'll be focusing on today. And you want to think of it like an introduction to pronunciation. So we'll be practicing a little bit in each of these areas. The first one is vowel and consonant sounds. So those are the smallest sounds that have to do with creating words. Then we'll talk about stress, which isn't like, stress, okay? It means emphasis, where you put more force in a word. Then we'll be talking about intonation. Sometimes this is called the music of the language, with the sounds of it going up and down. Sometimes it's called the tones of a language. And then the last area is reduced forms. So if you're an advanced student, you really want to stick around for that last section, because this is one thing that advanced students can really benefit from. So let's go ahead and start with our vowel sounds first. And I recommend that when you're learning the vowel sounds as a beginning student, that you use something called the color vowel chart. And you can Google this, and there's different versions of it, but it's all pretty much the same idea, which is that for every sound, there's a color. So for example, if you look at the graphic, the color here for the sound E is green. And so if you like green tea, you're going to smile whenever you see it or whenever somebody serves it to you. And you're going to say green tea. And if you were here in front of me and I could see your teeth, you're doing it right. What if you don't like green tea? You can't pronounce green tea. No one will understand you. You have to smile. You have to pretend, okay, that you like green tea. Green tea. You might want to get a mirror and look at yourself. And if you see a big smile, you're probably doing it right. So let's look at the next one. This is the vowel sound I. I, like white tie. So the clue for the I sound is the color white. And so you'll notice that my mouth is opening and closing. White tie. All right? And again, you want to practice and look at your mouth and make sure it's opening and closing. I also suggest that you exaggerate, that you say white tie, like those Americans with their big mouths, okay? Because then when you do it normally, white tie, it doesn't feel so funny because you've done the exaggerated version. All right, the next vowel sound is ow, like brown cow. So the clue here, the color is brown. And you'll see again that my mouth is opening and closing, but this time when it closes, it does this. Okay, watch. Brown cow. And our lovely cow has a little crown. It's all the same sounds. So you open and then you close it to a small mouth. Okay? The last vowel that we're going to do is I. The clue is silver. And this sound can be especially challenging, so I've put a graphic there for you. You can see that the lips are not closed, the teeth are not closed, and the tongue is kind of forward and kind of up. All right? So I always tell my students, try to relax everything for this sound. And it's I. Silver pin. Silver pin. So notice I'm not smiling, I'm not doing this, just relax, silver. And I can feel my tongue a little bit up. All right, now we're going to go on to some vowel sounds. And the first one is the TH sound. If you look at the bottom of the graphic, you can see a couple of symbols. Those are from what's called the International Phonetic Alphabet. Usually I don't use those very much because a lot of students don't know them and they're not the same from textbook to textbook and dictionary to dictionary. I'm using them here, but later on I use my own spelling. So let's look at the first one. It says the voiced TH. So voice means when you can feel vibrations here and there's a sound coming out. So in the word this, you want to do two things. You want to stick your tongue out like in the picture, and then you want to make sure you're feeling this moving. You're feeling vibration, and that's what voiced means. So together, this. And I hope you're doing this with me at home. This. So now the other TH sound is called voiceless, which means there's no voice happening. What's happening is air. And so instead of putting your hand here, you're going to put your hand in front of your mouth, see? And you're going to try and feel the air coming out. So in this case, thing. And I can feel air on my hand. Thing. And that will help you know that you're doing it correctly. Thing. Again, don't be embarrassed to stick out your tongue. That's the only way to get the sound correct. All right, now we're going to do a couple of what are called minimal pairs. These are when there's two sounds that really sound alike and students often struggle with them. So the first pair is L and R. So if you're an Asian student, this is for you. So L, like in light bulb, you can see in the diagram, your mouth is kind of relaxed, it's not closed, it's not open, and your tongue's kind of curled up to make the ol sound, ol. To make the R sound, like in right or correct, the front of your mouth stays as your lips and your teeth stay the same, but now you're going to pull your tongue back. So that one sounds And so what I suggest is if this sound isn't natural for you, if it feels very difficult and strange, is that you kind of play with moving your tongue back and forth. So for example, ol is for light, so I'm starting with ol, L, and then I'm going to pull it back. So ol. So you can see this really isn't moving. It's moving a tiny bit here, but almost not at all. Now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to start with R, like right, and I'm going to go to the L. So, alrighty. So you should practice moving your tongue back and forth to where you can hear the difference in those two sounds. The last pair that we're going to do is V and W. So W as in wow, and V as in a vow. So a vow is a promise. You say vows when you get married. So for the W sound in wow, you have to start like this. Okay? Wow, wow. So you're not totally closed, but you're like this. And then for the V, as in a vow, promise, and you should feel some little vibration, the same vibration that you felt on your throat. You should feel it here in your lips. So, wow, wow, vow, wa, v. So you can practice those on your own. So that's the end of the vowel and consonant section. What I'd like to do now is go over to the comments, see if I can answer some of your questions. Give me a moment here. All right, I'm going to refresh the page because I'm not seeing new comments. Here we go, they're loading. All right, I'm just going to continue on. So far, everyone, it must be very clear to everyone because I don't have any questions. That's great. So the next section that we'll be doing is about stress. So remember, this isn't the kind of stress where, oh no, you feel anxious. It means emphasis. So when we're talking about stressing in a language, there's two areas. The first one is a sound in a word. So just a syllable, and then the word in the whole sentence. So let's look at, first of all, we're going to talk about a sound in a word. So the first thing you want to ask yourself is, what are the syllables? So let me give you some examples. So in my name, Nancy, there's two syllables, Nancy. In the word exciting, there's three syllables, exciting. So that's the first thing to figure out. And then you want to ask yourself, what syllable should I stress in this word? What syllable should I put some force, some emphasis on? So there's actually several rules. I'm just going to teach you 2 rules today, and this will get you started. The first rule is you want to stress the first syllable of most 2-syllable nouns. So, for example, the word climate, that's a noun. Remember, nouns are a person, a place, or a thing. Climate has 2 syllables, and this rule says you stress the first one. So, climate. So to help you know how to create that stress, you can move your body, climate. You can raise your voice, climate. You can say it louder. That's the idea of stress in a language. Let's look at the other example. The word is knowledge. So the rule says if it's a 2-syllable noun, you stress the first syllable. So, knowledge, knowledge. The second part of the rule says you should stress the first syllable in most 2-syllable adjectives. So just to remind you, an adjective is a word that describes a noun. It describes a thing. So we have the adjective here, tired. Oh, I'm so tired. So tired has 2 syllables, and the rule says to stress the first one. So tired, tired. The second adjective is crunchy, crunchy. 2 syllables, we're stressing the first one. Crunchy, crunchy. So I'm going to say it wrong just so you can hear the difference. Crunchy, crunchy. That would be hard to understand. Here's how it sounds correctly. crunchy. Alrighty, so that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, stress the last syllable of most 2-syllable verbs. Okay, so a verb is an action word or something like be. So we have maintain. There's 2 syllables. Maintain is a verb. That means to keep something the way it is. Maintain, maintain. And then the verb decide. So 2 syllables, decide, and the stress, according to the rule, is on the 2nd syllable. Decide, decide. All right? So I hope you're doing those with me at home so you're kind of getting a feeling about stress. Now, I'm very sorry to say that there's a lot of exceptions to these rules. There's a lot of them. So the rules are a place to start. And remember, these are only 2 rules. There's kind of 4 basic ones. It's a place to start, but you're going to come across a lot of exceptions. You know, English, we love exceptions. So let's go ahead and practice these rules. So if you look at the first column, it says stress on the first syllable. So in the first word, happy, 2 syllables, right? You're going to stress the first one. Happy. I'm so happy to be studying English with you today. All right, the second word is lonely. 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 And the last word, we're still stressing the first syllable. I'm going to let you take a second, think about how you would say it. All right, here we go. Bubble. Bubble. So imagine that you're at a birthday party and there's somebody who's just learning English, but they're really excited. Maybe it's a child. And they say to you, or they say to me, oh, Nancy, come look at the bubbles. And I would say, what? And the little girl would say, Nancy, come look at the bubbles. I wouldn't know what she's talking about. I'd say, oh, why don't you show me, honey? And then we would walk outside and I would see the bubbles. Okay? So if you put the stress in the wrong place, you're not going to be communicating clearly. Remember, that's the goal. So this is one of the aspects of pronunciation that communicates meaning. All right, let's look at when you put stress on the second syllable. So we have these verbs here, according to the rule. So the first one is obey. Obey, with that emphasis on the second syllable. Arrange. Arrange. Okay, take a moment, see if you can do the last one. Okay, here we go. Repair. Repair. All right, now we have one more column, and these are words that have more than 2 syllables, but I wanted to give you some examples of them. These words have other rules. Excuse me. So, disappointed. Disappointed has 4 syllables. Disappointed. And the stress is on the third one. Disappointed. I was so disappointed. All right? The next word, understand. Stress is going to be here. Understand. I'm so happy. I understand about stress now. All right, take a moment. Try to do the last word on your own. So let's first count the syllables. University. 5 syllables. University. Stress is on the third one. University. You might be wondering, Nancy, why do you count in such a strange way? Why do you start with your thumb? Well, I studied sign language. If you're a sign language teacher or a student, you know that's how it's done. It's just a habit from college. So, let me go ahead and now we're going to talk about stress in a sentence. So we talked about in a word, which syllable, and now we're going to talk about which word in a sentence. And I want to tell you a little story about this. So when I was in college, I was studying to get my degree in English as a second language. I had a friend from China. His name was Wang. And I was studying Chinese at the time, and he was in my department. So he was trying to get his degree for teaching English. And so we would help each other. And so one day he told me, Nancy, I got invited to a dinner party with an American. I said, that's great. He said, what do I do? What do I take? I don't know what to say. I said, oh, don't worry, it's easy. I told him to take some flowers or some candy, and we talked about how, kind of what it is like usually. And so then after the party, I said, how did it go? And he said, oh, I think it went okay. And I said, well, tell me about it. And he said, well, at the end of the party, everyone kept saying, thank you for having me, thank you for coming, thank you for the food, thank you for the flowers. I said, yes, that's very common American behavior at the end of a party. And he said, but then something strange happened. And I said, what happened? And he said, well, the lady who invited me said to me, did you like the dinner? Did you like the food? And I said, the rice was really good. I started laughing, and he said, oh no, what? And I said, well, if you emphasize just the rice, it sounds like everything else was bad and you only liked the rice. So he said, oh, no wonder the lady looked kind of insulted. So I'm going to go over here to the next slide, and I've kind of written out what happened. So she said, did you enjoy the dinner? He said, I liked the rice, which gives the idea of only the rice, which you probably don't want to do. So you might get a face like that. So a better answer would be to emphasize all of it. Everything was really good, or yes, it was delicious. But you see, words that are more positive in general are emphasized, not just one thing. So let me give you another example. Let's imagine that you and your friend are going to go out to a nice restaurant, or you're on a date, and she gets herself all fixed up, and she says, how do I look? And you say, your hair looks great. She's going to have that unhappy face that you see in the picture, because this makes it sound like only her hair looks good and the rest of her does not look good. So a better answer would be, you look great, like all of you looks great. And if you want to say about the hair, you can say, I really like your hair too. All right? So you want to be careful with stress. So that's the end of our second section about stress. If you arrived late, we've talked about pronunciation of vowels and consonant. We just talked about where to put stress in a word or a sentence. I'm going to have a look at the comments. Someone asked me, how do you pronounce international? So we can first of all think of the syllables. International. So there's 5 syllables, so it's a long word. International. And the stress goes on your 3rd syllable. International. All right? Thank you for that question, Rudola. Someone said, I have a hard time pronouncing S followed by the TH sound, such as the train goes through the city. What should I do to master these sounds together? So the problem here is goes followed by through. So we have an S at the end and then a TH at the beginning. I think you're just going to have to practice this. This is Lucas. Hi, Lucas. Goes through, goes through. You might want to make a little tune out of it. I know that might sound a little silly, but what I've noticed is that, for example, when I sing along with Spanish songs in Spanish that are particularly hard, it forces me to be able to, well, when I say hard, I mean fast. So it forces me to say those sounds really quickly, over and over and over again. And so what I would do is maybe make up a little tune, a little song with your sentence there that you said the train goes through the city, and just walk around singing it, okay? And then when you say it, it's going to get easier. So it's a way to practice, but it's a little more fun. And also the singing actually really is helpful. So I'm just looking at my schedule here. We want to get started with the next section, which is, and I'll take some more questions and comments later. So the next section is intonation. Intonation is about knowing when to make your voice go up, like this, and when to make it come down, like this. All right, intonation is important because we use it to communicate meaning. So just in the same way that stress, where you put the stress, communicates meaning, intonation also communicates meaning. And so there's 3 types: rising, falling, and sometimes we use a rise and fall combined. So let's go ahead and look at this. There's different kinds. Probably you've learned that at the end of a question, you should raise your voice. Okay, but actually this is only for yes/no questions. So if the answer to the question is yes or no, that's when you make your voice rise at the end. So for example, you could ask the question, did you make that movie? Do you hear that? Did you make that movie? And your voice goes up, and I would say yes, if I did. And then second one, do you want to go swimming? You hear that? Do you want to go swimming? Voice goes up. Now, in this other kind of question, which are WH questions, those you don't make your voice go up. Those, it's a different pattern. It's very hot here. So instead of starting like this at my normal tone, where did you film? You raise your tone a little bit. Where did you film the movie? And then you go down. So, where did you film the movie? A second example. So I'm not starting here. I'm starting a little bit higher. When will you go to the store? When will you go to the store? Okay? So that's your intonation with questions. Then we have intonations with orders. Those use a falling tone. So an order is when you're telling somebody what to do. Like maybe the teacher tells the student what to do, or the mother tells the child what to do. So here's how it sounds. Stand up. Stand up. So I'm going to do a rising tone just so you can hear the difference. Stand up. No, it's not a question, it's an order. Stand up and let that woman with the baby sit down, my mother told me. So she gave you an order. Next one, run faster, said the coach. So he didn't ask, he didn't make it a question. Run faster? He said, run faster. All right, exclamations use a falling tone as well. So those are those words of surprise. Oh, wow, oh my goodness, watch out. Those are exclamations. So I'm going to let you practice the next 2, and then I will say them. All right, be careful, and wow. Wow, so much to learn about pronunciation. Wow. And be careful with your stress and intonation. So the next thing in intonation we're going to look at are lists. So some of these arrows go up and some of them come down, which means that lists use both the rising and the falling intonation. So number 1, we have a list. Last night at the party, we played games, we danced, and we ate snacks. So those are the 3 things. So the rule for a list is You rise on all the items until it's the last item, and then you fall. So, for example, we played games, we danced, and we ate snacks. I'm going to do that one more time for you. We played games, we danced, and we ate snacks. All right, number 2, we've got a bunch of musical instruments here. So again, the rule is you rise on all of them until the last one, and then you fall. So, Kobe can play the guitar, the piano, the flute, and the violin. One more time. Kobe can play the guitar, the piano, the flute, and the violin. All right. Go ahead, see if you can do the last one. I'll give you a moment, and then I'll do it for you. Okay, so far, Tran has studied grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation. And that's communicating to the listener. When you come down, it's like saying, now I'm done with the list. So that's the meaning there. I'm finished with that list. All right, the last section about intonation has to do with tag questions. This is another section for you advanced students. So tag questions are those little questions at the end, and sometimes you make your voice go down to communicate, I think I know what you're talking, or I think I know the answer, but I'm not sure. Just check it. Or if we make our voice go up, I really don't know. So for example, in number 1, let's imagine that you're a mom and you have a small child and you tell your son, please don't play with the dog. I don't want you to get dirty before we go to grandma's house. So you go away, you come back, your son's all dirty. He played with the dog, you're pretty sure. So you say, you played with the dog, didn't you? Because you're pretty sure you know the answer. But let's say that your son's not dirty, but the dog looks kind of tired. Maybe you wanted your son to play with the dog. Different situation. You would say, you played with the dog, didn't you? And you rise, because you don't know. You played with the dog, didn't you? That rising says, I don't know the answer. Okay, number 3 and 4 is a different example. Let's say that your friend's car broke down and you go home and you're going to ask your older sister, who's great about fixing cars, if she can help your friend. But you go home and you see your sister, she's busy with all this work from her job. And so you think, oh, she's not going to be able to help my friend. But you want to check. So you say, you can't help her. Can you? Because you think the answer is going to be no. You already know. Excuse me. But let's say you come home and she's just watching TV. Excuse me. And so you want to find out. You don't really know. So you say, you can't help her. Can you? And going up means, maybe there's some hope. I don't know, but I want to find out. So those are the areas of intonation that we're covering today. I have a moment to take some more comments. Let's see what we have here. All right, so one person said, what's the difference between stress in a syllable and stress in a word? It's pretty much the same thing because words are made of syllables, right? So, for example, exciting, we have 3 syllables in the word, and we're stressing the second syllable in the word. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing. Okay, this is Dimitri. This person's wondering the relationship between stressing, if I understand correctly, the sounds in the word and then the sounds in a sentence. Well, first you would use the correct stress in the word, and then you use that same stress in the sentence, right? So this is the idea of the language having like building blocks. You first start with your words and you learn how to say the word correctly, and then you put it in a sentence, and then you're thinking about where, sorry, not intonation, where am I going to put the stress in the sentence? But let's say you're going to stress the word exciting. You're still going to say exciting. And so if someone says, how was the field trip? You say, it was so exciting. So you're stressing that word, exciting, but you're also stressing the second syllable of the word, exciting. I hope that helps. Someone says, how do you pronounce plural? Plural. Eleanor is so confusing. I know. I'm sorry. Keep working on it. You'll get it, though. Someone is asking me about the word pedagogical. And it sounds weird when you say these sounds. You know, my suggestion is just listen to native speakers. Ask some of your native speaker friends, or see if you can find it on the internet. Someone just saying the word pedagogical. Pedagog, so that's the first hard G, and then J. I can see why that word would be tricky. Thank you, Javier, for that question. So we're on to the last section of the class today, which is reduced forms. Again, if you're an advanced student, hooray, this is for you. So a reduced form is a word that is made from combining 2 or 3 words. So for example, going to becomes gonna. You might be thinking, gonna doesn't sound like going to. That's correct. Think of it like a sandwich. We put these words together, we just cram them together, and we say gonna. All right, these words are used in speaking, but not in academic or formal writing. So you can text them to your friends. Anytime you're speaking, you can use them, even in a formal situation. But you don't want to write them for formal writing, for your job or for school. Native speakers use them all the time because they sound natural. They sound smooth to us. So if you listen to American TV, if you watch American TV, or you listen to native speakers talking with each other, even if you're an advanced student, you may have trouble understanding, and I would suggest that you make sure you study reduced forms, because it's almost like a new vocabulary word. Maybe you studied going to, but you never studied gonna. And so when you hear gonna, you don't know what anybody's talking about, right? Because you didn't learn it. So you can look these up. There's lists of them on the internet. I put Taylor Swift here because she sings the song Haters Gonna Hate. So she's using gonna. You can go to YouTube, you can listen to her song, you can sing along, gonna, 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 and you can get that feeling for that word. So I'm going to show you some of the most common reduced forms. There's a lot more. So we make reduced forms with different words, specific types of words. The first set here is prepositions like the word to. So we already talked about gonna. Then we have want to becomes wanna. So you can see we just drop the T's. We forget about those, and we don't say want to, we say wanna. If you want to hear it, you can go to YouTube. You can find the song I Don't Want to Know by Maroon 5, and you can sing along. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Okay, the last one is have to. A lot of times we change the V to an F sound, and we change the U in to So have to, I have to study harder becomes have to. I have to study harder. Again, this is everyday language. First thing is learn to recognize it when you hear it. The next examples are from personal pronouns. So those are words like he, she, her, you, we. And we tend to drop the H sound. So he becomes E. I'll give you an example in a minute. Her becomes and you becomes ju or ya. I know, it sounds strange. Here's the examples. So instead of saying, what's he doing? we would run that what's and he together. Think of it like you're mashing a sandwich together, and instead of saying what's he, we say what's he? What's he? All right, what's he doing? I don't know. He's studying English with Nancy. Or who's her friend becomes who's her? Who's her friend? So instead of saying who's her, who's her? Everyone will understand you. This will be like magic, I promise. If you start using these, no one will even notice. And that will be your clue that you sound natural, because no one will notice. They'll just understand you. It will be wonderful. And the last one comes from Justin Timberlake singing Cry Me a River. It's a sad video. He's singing, "Why did you leave me?" But he doesn't say, "Why did you leave me?" He says, "Why'd you leave me?" So do you hear that j sound? Why'd you leave me? Go to YouTube, find the song, you can hear it. Next one, very common. I don't know becomes I don't know. I don't know. So we drop off that T, I don't know. You can go to YouTube, listen to that song by Imagine Dragons called I Don't Know. I don't know why. Finally, there's reduced forms that are made with modals. So modals are words like could, would, might, should, must. And in our example, we have lovely Adele, who sings Rolling in the Deep. And she says with all her might, we could have had it all. We could have had it all. So could have, again, we drop that H sound, we say could have. Sometimes people even drop the V sound. Remember that V sound? And they just say coulda. We could have had it all. Now, what if it's negative? If you look under the picture, you can see it's couldn't have. Could not have becomes couldn't have. But we take it even farther. We drop the T. We say couldn't have. Couldn't have. All right, so first you want to learn to recognize these when you hear them. That's step number one. Step number two is try and use them. Be brave. Throw one out there. See what happens. Okay, so I couldn't have done this webinar without you. Thank you so much for coming. And I want to give you a couple practice reduced forms. So I'm going to say the sentence, you listen, and you can write it in the comments, or you can just write it on a piece of paper, write what you hear, and then I'll show you what they actually are. So the first one, number one, I don't want to tell her. I don't want to tell her. I don't want to tell her. All right, number two. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? And number three, how'd you do on this exercise? How'd you do on this exercise? How'd you do on this exercise? I hope you did great. So I'm going to show you the answers here. I don't want to tell her becomes I don't want to tell her. I don't want to tell her. Where'd he go becomes where'd he go? And how'd you do on this exercise becomes how'd you do on this exercise? So congratulations to Mila. She got it right. She said, I don't want to tell her. Excellent work, Mila. So I have a few more minutes to take a few more comments. I'm going to look over here and see what we've got. Somebody said, one other word I have trouble with is towel. So this is my friend Javier again. Towel. Okay, so if you go back to the pronunciation slides, these are two sounds, right? So he's saying the word towel, like the towel. here. Okay, so first we've got a W. So we've got to open and close, right, for that W. Tau, tau. And then you have an R following that. They're mean, right? Those people who made this word. So tau, and then you're going to do ol. You're going to pull, you're going to make your tongue curl up. So tau, ol. So you can practice those two sounds separately, ow and then ol, and then try and put them together like owl, the animal. Actually, that's a good thing to do, is to first practice saying owl, owl, then towel. So you've got a lot going on with your mouth and your tongue there. I can understand why that would be a hard song, a hard word. Okay, this is a good question. Gabrielle asked me, is cannot another reduced form? Cannot is actually an abbreviation. So cannot becomes can't. But you can write the word can't in anything formal and you're good. So I should say you can't make up your own reduced forms. This would be fun, but you can't make your own. You have to use the ones that native speakers use. I'm glad, Laura, that this was useful for you, and I'm glad someone else that you liked the third part. I'm sorry I can't read your name. So, looks like we're done. Thank you so much for coming today. And there's going to be some information in the next slide that I'm going to put up for you about italki, about finding me, about finding other teachers. And I just want to say there's so many great teachers on italki. It's a wonderful community. I know I work for this company, but I think it's a great company. And I really encourage you to take advantage of all the languages that are represented there, all the students, students from everywhere, languages from everywhere, lots of great teachers, teachers with different levels of experience, teachers who charge different amounts. So I just feel like there's something for everyone there. So really encourage you to take advantage of your opportunity with italki. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you for studying. And yep, I'm going to go ahead and put up the last card. Goodbye. Have a great rest of your day.